Do you have a feline poopster? It's pretty disgusting finding stool in the wrong place around the house, like your carpet or your bed. It's also pretty frustrating. Well, you can bail yourself out of this, but you have to know where to start. In case we haven't met, I'm veterinarian Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm residency trained in behavior medicine with a whole lot of years in general practice. And by the way, if you've had this kind of problem, type it in the comment line and I'll address it right now. Give you some individual help with this thing. I'm going to give you some good structure to work with on these things, but every case is different, so give me the particulars of yours and let's see if we can work with this. And Cindy, great to see you. Thank you for coming. I know that stool in the wrong place is one of the most common behavior problems with cats, but it's not something everybody has. So if you have a friend whose cats might be doing something like this, you're welcome to put their name in the comment line and they can join this conversation, or they can tune into this Facebook Live. It'll stay on my Facebook page. So, you know, this is such a frustrating problem, and people let their emotions, you know, get the better of them sometimes, and the problem can only get worse. So let's go through some of the issues here. And by the way, again, interrupt me any time with this. I'd like to read to you one of the questions that I answered in most weeks in my newspaper column. Sometimes I put research-based information or even a report on a particular case that I saw, but usually it's question-answer. And here's one that I think really speaks to this issue. You doing okay, boys? All right, they're having snacks. My female cat runs under the bed when visitors arrive and stays there until they leave. This hasn't been a problem until recently. She urinates in her litter box, which we keep in the bathroom, but goes number 2 under the bed even when we have no visitors. Can't break her out of this habit. That's the frustration part. I get that. People bring their cats to me with this kind of a house soiling problem. They are frustrated. They often say, oh, we've tried everything, until, you know, they contacted a specialist. And really, what it amounts to, like any other problem in the body, you find the cause. And we'll talk about that. So here was my response. There is nothing more frustrating than cat poop under the bed. Actually, cat poop under a pillow, and that happens, is more frustrating. It's likely that your girl's fecal soiling is fear-based. We may never know for sure how it started, but many cats retain long-term behavior associations following unrelated events that occurred simultaneously. For example, your cat may have been defecating in her pan at the same time a guest inadvertently made a sudden loud noise, scaring the you-know-what out of her. Avoid punishing your confused feline. She would just get more panicked about pooping in the proper place. Set her up for success by blocking her access to the area under your bed. Locate a litter pan nearby to make it easy for her to do the right thing. And that's the missing part for many people. And you know, if you back up and try to distance yourself from the emotion and the frustration a bit, you can recognize that, wait a minute, if I make it, you know, inconvenient for the cat to do the wrong thing and make it really easy for them to do the right thing, well, then they can make a choice. And we'll talk again in a few minutes about how to set them up for choices. And then they do the right thing most times. You don't have to focus on, oh my goodness, this cat has pooped in the house again, okay? Because that doesn't do anything for your relationship with the cat, and the problem just keeps going. So once she reestablishes the habit of defecating in a litter box, you can gradually move it farther from your bed to avoid getting a barefoot surprise if you have to get up during the night. You can help this feline wallflower survive your holiday merrymaking by giving her a snug hideaway in a quiet part of the house during your next shindig, which I'm sure will include everybody wearing a mask and staying 6 feet apart. I recommend locating a cozy little cat house in the bathroom where the litter pan concept already makes sense to her. Kindness really matters with these things. Obviously, it takes more than that. But, you know, a headbutting contest with a cat never, I mean, nobody wins those. So let me tell you a brief story that also illustrates part of this. I'm going to rename the two cats who lived in this house Laurel and Hardy. Anybody remember them? Anyway, they lived in a house with a married couple. These folks had no children. They had a decent-sized house, 2 bathrooms, and so, you know, stay out of each other's way. It was a his and hers thing, and somebody else has shown up. Martha, hey, great to see you. Thank you for coming. Carolyn will hand me my iPad pretty soon. I won't have to lean into my iPhone camera. Anyway, so this, you know, these folks had some nice things. They asked me to come to their house to do a house call for this thing, which turns out made a lot of sense because I got to walk the house and understand exactly what they were talking about. So, you know, they did that. They made good incomes, and they had some really nice, valuable rugs. And one thing they did not want was these cats eliminating on their high-value rugs. But they love their cats. And putting them outside was not an option. So we found that these cats were routinely defecating on the, is that Ann Manners? Ann Manners, good to see you. I hope you're feeling well. Ann is my sister-in-law. She had a surgery recently, but I know that she's doing a little better. And well, if she were too miserable, she wouldn't have been tuning in on this because I would only make her sicker. So these cats were actually defecating on the bathroom rugs. These folks had these nice rugs, you know, you step on it when you get out of the shower, and it had kind of a nice little texture to it, and that's where they were eliminating. So what we did simply was that we made sure that their litter pans were good and clean and were in places where nobody was going to get scared using it, not in high traffic areas. And I had them go out and buy a couple more of these bathroom rugs. They weren't particularly cheap, but they weren't real expensive collector rugs, you know, like Oriental rugs, that kind of stuff. So these were just, you know, Bed Bath & Beyond type rugs, and so they got a couple of extra ones, and I had them get really big litter pans, because with cats, every time research has been done on the size of the litter pan, the bigger the pan, the more likely cats are to use it. So I had them get sweater boxes at Target, recycle the plastic in the lids, excuse me, gentlemen, and I know I use that term loosely sometimes. Yeah, my cats aren't perfect. So they got these great big sweater boxes that people use to store their sweaters in the summertime. Recycle the lids. Use a utility knife to cut down one area so the cats could get in without, you know, having to pole vault. And we had litter on part of the bottom of this litter pan, and I had them scoop it over with, you know, a litter scoop, the same kind of thing you use to scoop the litter pan, so that part of the bottom of the litter pan had no litter, and I had them cut a piece of this same kind of rug and put that in the bottom of the litter pan on one side. So when the cats got in the litter pan, they found the surface, the texture that they liked, and that's where they started to eliminate. Well, you can throw these things in the laundry or you can throw them away. And when we made it a lot easier, they started to do that routinely. And then very, very gradually, I mean super slowly, you move the litter over in the bottom of the pan. So there's less and less of the rug. Ultimately, you have to keep a little bit of that rug in there. Sometimes people have actually Velcroed it to the side of the litter pan so that it's nearby. Very often you have to leave a little piece of it in the bottom of the litter pan. But that's a necessary part of this whole thing. So Carolyn, my cats have deserted me because...
I know, I'm working on the...
Oh, she's... Okay, you're filling another feeder. Okay, thank you.
No, I'm trying to get your Facebook...
Oh, all right. Okay, well, I'll get another feeder and my cats will show back up again. You know, if I don't have food for them, they're, you know, Miss America here, the Nickel family border collie, she doesn't mind hanging out, but, you know, she's sort of a prop during this Facebook Live. So, one of the two primary reasons that cats use some other place other than the litter pan for their bathroom duties, well, one of them is what we call aversion. In other words, they don't want to use the pans. And the most common reason for that is that people are not keeping them clean. I mean, it's not a chore anybody wants, but you need to keep enough litter in there that they can dig, and you need to keep at least one litter pan per household cat plus one. So if you have just one cat, you need 2 pens. If you have 2 cats, you need 3, etc. And in fact, in this 2-cat household of ours, we have 4 litter pans. Why take any chances? In fact, one of them is a self-cleaning litter pan. Thank you, Carolyn.
Can I have one of the empty ones?
Yeah, here you go.
Thank you.
So, here you go, Tony T. Tony comes around the back way. So, set them up for success. So that's one big problem with litter pans, the aversion issue. And in some cases, it's because it's in a high traffic area, especially with a family and their kids running around, that kind of stuff. In other situations, it's in a location where one cat can ambush the other. Yeah, that sounds funny, right? Except that they can, one cat gets bullied, and that's the one that's soiling, because they can't safely use the litter pan. And I'll talk in a minute about how do you know whether that's happening, because a lot of this is going on and people, they don't know. So another issue, of course, is their preference, like the texture, and not just what I was talking about with Laurel and Hardy, the cats belonging to the folks with the expensive rugs, but also it can be the texture of the litter itself. You know, there's old-fashioned clay litter, there is this pelletized, like yesterday's news, there is wheat litter, there's clumping litter, there's a premium clumping litter, which of course means it's more expensive, but it's softer, a little smaller grains. Not all cats prefer that, but statistically most do. So you've got to figure out, okay, why is this thing going on? And stress is very often a factor. So for example, if it's a busy family, or there's a stressful domestic situation, there are people who move in and out, that can, cats don't like change very much. And so they are just more prone to have stress-related behaviors when there's too much change in the family. And in fact, they can have stress-related bladder disease. In fact, that accounts for well over 40% of what are actually physical signs of bladder disease in cats are bladder wall changes, physical changes completely resulting from stress. Well, we can see stress-related colitis in cats where they start to defecate more often and have painful defecation, and it sometimes is influenced by stress, sometimes it can be entirely caused by stress. And those cats, they need a medical workup. Check for parasites, but also sometimes we need to take x-rays and even do an ultrasound or endoscopic biopsies to gather enough detail to get this problem understood. Very often we find that if they develop an aversion to using the litter pan because they were in the pan defecating just the way they should have been, and it was painful for them in that moment, then that cat going forward can develop an association, a classically conditioned association with pain and that litter pan, or pain and that kind of litter. So ruling out that kind of physical issue is essential in every one of these. For goodness sake, we don't want to waste anybody's time and cause the cat more stress by treating a gentleman, I have more cat food here, by trying to treat a physical problem in the gut as though it were behavioral. I mean, let's figure these things out. Like I said at the beginning, we have to understand the cause. So one of the things I like to do is, how can we manage these things differently? Well, what's been called a litter pan cafeteria, which, litter pans and cafeterias don't sound like a good combination. But what I like to do is get several pans, put them in different locations with different kinds of litter and different depths of litter, and see which ones the cats use. And there's Anne. Charlotte sometimes leaves one little droplet of feces in the hallway. It's like she had a piece of feces hanging on and it dropped off. I haven't figured out any pattern. She has done it before, but it's been a while. The last time she did it was earlier this week. Well, Charlotte is, Anne, correct me, but Carolyn, is Charlotte a longer-haired cat?
No.
She is a short-haired cat. Cats, just like dogs, have anal glands. These are nasty little structures that all cats and dogs are born with. They sit in the 4 o'clock and the 8 o'clock position relative to the anus. They secrete a fluid that's pretty nasty smelling. It has no useful function in cats and dogs. It's an evolutionary vestige from their distant cousin, the skunk, the striped kitty. Well, cats can get impacted anal glands, and if that's what's going on with Charlotte, having those emptied, which is a really very simple thing that the veterinarian can do on the exam table, because if they are really enlarged and the fluid has congealed and gotten hard like dried putty, which can happen, then that puts pressure right around the rectum and the anus, similar to a suppository, and it can cause cats to have a sudden fecal urgency, like, I gotta go now. But something that can happen with longer-haired cats, just like longer-haired dogs, is that even the people who love their pets and take great care of them and observe them can still get fooled, because how often do you raise your cat or dog's tail and look at, the area around their anus? Well, they can get a little bit of soft stool stuck to their fur each time they defecate, and eventually you can get this hard ball of stool, we call in the veterinary clinic a Klingon, because we don't want to send pets home with those. Nobody's happy then. Well, if you've got that kind of thing stuck to your pet's rear end, they can have a hard time passing stool and a piece can fall off. But a short-haired cat like Charlotte, first thing I would do, we always look for physical problems outside the brain to explain what could be behavioral, could be other physical, and ask the veterinarian to check her out back there and bring in a stool sample. Charlotte is an indoor cat, but you have had some stray cats in your yard, and checking a stool sample for parasites, it's a smart thing to do annually anyway. But have those anal glands checked, and let's rule that out right from the get-go. So anyway, those litter pans, you can put them around the house and see which ones are getting used, but make sure they're clean. And litter pans, clumping litter is generally considered the very best. And which brand, which depth, again, back to the cafeteria. But every litter pan needs to be scooped out. They've got these plastic scoopers, but if you got stuff that kind of gets stuck to the bottom of the pan, put a little force, you break the darn handle. This cost me a few extra bucks, but it'll last forever. Anyway, at our house I do all that stuff because I think the rest of the family figures, well, he's a veterinarian, he might as well scoop the litter pan, right? So that's what I do. Twice a day, morning and night, I check all the pans, and once a week they're dumped out, they're washed thoroughly, and soaked in just a mild sudsy water. I use Mr. Clean in water, dilute solution. Soak it for a few hours and rinse it out and dry it and put fresh litter. And these cats say, okay, it doesn't stink, and they're more likely to use it. That really matters. Now, some people use covered litter pans, and those actually, statistically, cats don't like those. They tend, if you have more than one cat, they can get ambushed in there, but it also can trap odors, and it's harder for the people to see that the pan's been used. So lids on litter pans, generally not the best idea. Uncovered, but big. Big pans really matter. And have them in low traffic areas of the house. And sometimes if we can't figure out, all right, what the heck is really going on? Why are there some cats who just won't use it? What I like to do then, if you've got a home surveillance system, or if you don't, you can just take your smartphone, prop it up against a couple of books, or you get one of these cheap little smartphone tripods, $15, $20, and you can aim it at the area of the litter pan and pull it back a bit so you can see what's going on, not just when the cats use the pan, but what's the politics among these cats around that litter pan. You'd think, that's like a coveted spot. Yeah. Oh, sure. Cats will bully another cat in the household around that, and you may not have any idea until you look at the video. And that's got to be figured out. Cats, they need to have an enriched environment, and they need security. They need to get away from it all. They need multiple hide boxes at different heights in different rooms, floor-to-ceiling cat trees against windows. But what's going on around the litter pans? There's nothing like a video. And you can, you don't need to be a veterinary behaviorist to figure that stuff out. If there's stool on the floor, you really want to get rid of the odor. I've shown this product before. This is called anti-icky poo. This is a product that has an enzyme that breaks down any organic matter like little bits of stool or urine after you've cleaned it up, and it has an active organism, a bacillus, that breaks down additional organic matter. You have absolutely got to get rid of all traces of odor. As much as cats don't like that, it's sort of the power of suggestion. They'll go back and they'll defecate again. There's another good product called Zero Odor that's also very, very good. But you've got to keep it clean. You've got to stay after it. But you know that one of the fundamentals here with cats is that kindness really matters. I had another question I was going to read, a question answer for you about this same problem. But I didn't want to get people upset or depressed because, frankly, the punishments that people mete out to their cats are completely unnecessary, they're inappropriate, and they're counterproductive, and it damages the relationship. Does nothing to change the behavior because you never see them doing it. It's always after the fact. So don't do that stuff. Let's figure out the cause. And this really is a kindness issue because these guys, you know, if you get yourself irritated and you come upon the stool or the urine and the cat takes off, the cat's reading your body signaling. He knows that you're upset. He does not know that if you give him a hard time about something that happened more than a second earlier, he's not going to get it. But even if you catch your kitty in the act, there isn't anything about punishment that tells the cat what to do instead. You have got to understand the underlying cause and fix that. And so giving cats choices, that's really essential to, behavior of any creature, is you've got to give them the freedom to make better choices. You've got to lighten up on them so that they can do what you think is right. You give them the opportunities and make it a little harder to do the wrong thing. Like the cat in that question I read that was defecating under the bed. Put little pieces of cardboard or something under there so the cat can't get under there anymore, and then have a real pristine clean litter pan nearby. Or maybe one at one end of the bed and one at the other with different kinds of litter, so you can learn what works best for that cat, and then gradually move it away from the bed. It's that choice and that freedom, because we know that if we try too hard to get a cat to do what we want and only trying to get what we want out of the deal and don't try to help them to get their needs met, they can get obstinate, just like a person who is someone's trying to force them to do things differently, and there's nothing in it for them. There has to be something in it for them. So that's the kindness end of this thing. So now I've got one more thing I want to share with you, and if you subscribe to my website, you can go to Dr. Jeff Nichol, drjeff, nichol.com. At the bottom of my homepage, you can subscribe. It costs nothing. And every Tuesday morning in your email, you will get my weekly Facebook Live video, and you'll get my weekly media blog, which is my newspaper column from the Albuquerque Journal from the preceding Friday. Well, this Tuesday, I'm going to be sharing some very interesting research on cats and slow eye blinking. Have you ever seen a cat being very peaceful and they blink their eyes very slowly, but they don't completely close them? It's sort of a half-closed lid, and they do it slowly, and they will do it as they watch you. Well, it turns out that cats will do this with each other. Sorry, you started, little guy. They'll do this with each other as an affiliative behavior. And if you are very still and your cat's doing this with you and you do it back, or if your cat's there and you start doing it first, that has a calming effect on the cat, and very often they will approach for some snuggling and other affection because they feel comfortable and calm. What a great way to connect with your cat. And in these times when, where do you get a hug, right? We can't even shake hands. Oh, you can, but you're putting yourself and other people at risk. We've got to get through this thing. And those of us who have pets, we can do this. And we can lure our cats to us by simply sharing their language. And I think you're going to find this information really very interesting. I talk in there a little bit about some other research where cats have recognized that their person is depressed and come to them for some affection and for some rubbing. Cats are a lot more personable and social in some ways that we didn't recognize before because they're different than we are, which is one of the best things about them, isn't it? So just something to look forward to. And so, by the way, when you do subscribe to my website, I will send you at no charge my at-home pet CPR and first aid guide, which you can print out and keep it handy just in case something goes sideways. So thank you for sharing some time with me this week. I do this stuff because I just want to bring out the best in pets and their people, because I love pets and their people. I love a lot of people who don't have pets, but I really have something to share with those who do. So thank you again for being part of this, and wear your mask and figure these things out before you try to solve them. Thanks so much. Thank you for those hearts.